Supply chains are going absolutely nuts. The supply chains are so broke that no one can agree on how broken they are. They seem to be easing, but they still are broke. Supply chains are causing all kinds of mass chaos, havoc, and uncertainty around the world. They do not expect traffic to ease as the Western ports continue to be congested until at least February and maybe even further. This spells disaster for Christmas, the holidays, and lots of goods that are trying to get into the United States. During the last couple of years, the United States has been obsessed with efficiency. We have scoured the earth looking for cheap labor and low cost of production. We have moved our manufacturing and supply chains offshore. We have sought out the lowest cost possible. But when you pursue efficiency, what you do is you give up all sorts of resiliency. So now we are dependent on these other manufacturing and supply chains in other countries. And they, once they make their goods or their services, they have to then bring them and import them into the United States. So one of the big stats that shows just how bad the congestion and the disruption in the supply chain has gotten is the cost of shipping something from China. So if we go ahead and we look at this, the cost to move a container from China to the US, the West Coast, fell 26% last week. It is down 26% week over week, but it is still $13,295. That is more than 3 times the high since the start of the year when the box cost $4,200. So even though the cost of shipping a container from China to the US West Coast has dropped 26% week over week, it is still 300+% higher than it used to be. Companies that are chartering their own smaller ships that are traditionally used for regional trade, and now they're saying, let's go, little boy, we're going to go across the Pacific Ocean. These smaller ships can cost twice as much to operate, and the average cost per box across the Pacific is around $30,000, which is nearly 8x or so from what it cost at the beginning of this year. The price of this stuff, the reason why you should care is that as the cost of logistical movement goes up, whether we are talking about the containers, the shipping, the ports, the truck drivers, etc., as those costs go up, that means that the end person that is receiving it, whether it's an individual or a business, they increase their prices to accommodate for their increased expenses. When they increase their prices, that means you at home, you pay more. This is why you hear a bunch of people saying, oh, the supply chains, the supply chains, it's the supply chains. That's why prices are going up. Why did the supply chains break? It's because we handed a ton of money to a ton of people for free, and they went on the internet and they went to the store and they started spending like drunken sailors. There was money falling out of their pockets and they were just spending and spending and spending. And asset prices were ripping and house prices were ripping and stocks were going up and they were selling it and they were getting more money and then they were spending that in the stores and online. And so ultimately what we did is we ended up constraining or breaking the supply chains. That's a huge problem. So who exactly is ordering all of these ships? Well, they're big importers, as you would expect. Amazon, Walmart, Home Depot, and others. But just Amazon, Walmart, and Home Depot account for 1/4 of all imports that come into the West Coast. Jeff Bezos and his squad of Walmart and Home Depot literally run the West Coast. That Pacific movement from China to the U.S. is owned, 25% of it, by 3 companies here in the U.S. Absolutely nuts. And the current situation in the southern hemisphere, that's not the southern hemisphere, the southern part of California, is that there's around 80 box ships waiting to unload at Los Angeles and Long Beach for at least 2 weeks. So there's 80 ships that have waited at least 2 weeks to unload. They're just sitting there. They're chilling. They say, hey, we got gear, but we can't drop it off because you guys can't get the boxes out of the way at the port. Why can't you get the boxes out of the way at the port? Because there's not enough truck drivers to go and take them. So there's lots and lots of problems. There's continued congestion. And so ultimately we got this quote from Lars Jensen, the CEO of Denmark-based Vespi Maritime. Maritime is just a cool ass word. But Lars said, quote, it could be months before the log jams ease, but if we don't get more closures at ports, the volume should become more manageable after the Chinese New Year. This is murderer's row for the logistics business. They literally have holiday after holiday after holiday after holiday after holiday all around the world. Everyone wants to know. Santa Claus is real, kids, but how do I get the stuff there? Maybe he'll drop it off with the sleigh, but also Bezos and company, they need to get you goods as well. And so it could be months before those log jams ease. How bad of a problem do we think this is, and are we worried?
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's obviously getting a little better when you look at cost, but time I'm sure will get better also. The thing that most people don't realize is, right, like I think Nike said it a few months ago that it was taking about 40 days to get things from Asia to the West Coast shipment wise. And now it's taking over 85 days. So if you order something today, it's not getting here until February, right? We're in the middle of November. So from a time perspective, it's crazy. And I think it's going to put a real constraint on the amount and the supply of holiday goods that are going to be here in the United States, because there's like at any given point, there's 20, 50, 100 ships sitting outside of the port in Los Angeles right now and other cities on the West Coast. So I think what we're going to see is there's obviously companies, the larger companies have said we're going to start shipping this and getting our own ships here so we don't have to deal with these astronomical rates, but also we're going to go to other ports. We're going to go to the East Coast. We're going to go to Portland. We're going to go to other areas that aren't as crowded so that we know we're not going to be sitting out there for 10 days idle in the ship and our goods are just sitting there. We're going to go to other places where we can access the port. I think what's going to be interesting is how this plays out over the holidays, right? And what we see come from not only the retailers from a price perspective, but consumers, where the demand looks. If people turn to digital goods, what, do people buy assets for people for gifts? All of that kind of stuff I think is interesting, but it also has to do with stores over there manufacturing these goods. And I use Nike as an example because they've been extremely transparent about their process. But what they said was in Vietnam, a second wave of COVID hit, and they weren't able to have these, I think it was when the plant reopened, when the manufacturing facility reopened, 80% of the workforce didn't return. So literally thousands and thousands of employees didn't return out of fear of COVID and everything else going on over there. So not only are goods taking longer to get here from a shipment perspective, they're also low on inventory and they're not creating these goods as fast as possible. And Nike's just one example. Every company that has major operations over in Asia is dealing with the same stuff right now. So I think that's part of it from a supply chain perspective. But I think the holidays are going to be super interesting to watch.
John, what do you think?
I forget who said it that said if you don't have you were talking about if you don't have your stuff on a cargo ship already on the way over here, this was like a month and a half ago, then it won't be in here for Christmas. I think we're going to see a lot of gift cards and cash and Bitcoin and all these other different type of digital stuff being given as gifts for Christmas. It's not the same feeling, but I also worry about people that a great side hustle that a lot of people do is drop shipping, right? So they'll have a drop shipping website or something on Amazon. Then when you buy it there, they'll buy it from somewhere else and then kind of ship it to you. But a lot of that isn't high inventory, so you don't want to pay those high fees for shipping internationally. You can't order in bulk because it's drop shipping. So there's a bunch of issues that you run into that. And then, the drunken sailor comment was funny. I like to say the spending money like it's burning a hole in your pocket. But drunken sailor, I think people were generally spending a lot of money sitting at home, setting up home offices, kind of doing home workout stuff, everything. They were just kind of bored and they were surfing the internet and buying stuff. So supply chain's going to last a really long time. It's going to last at least, experts are saying, until February. I don't expect anything less.
So I think another interesting thing is this used to be an unpopular opinion and something that no one ever talked about, and now it's become commonplace, I think, amongst a lot of people, which is that the United States and the companies that operate here took manufacturing stateside for granted, right? And they didn't look to explore innovation. They didn't look to set up processes and plants and do all this manufacturing here in the United States except for abroad because it was easy, it was cheaper, and it was just, from an economic standpoint, it was the right thing to do. And I think what this has created is the need to go and further develop that part of the supply chain, right? You need goods that are here in the United States in case things like this happen where you're not able to transport them. They cost more money. People are not coming into work. There's a variety of different reasons, but I think what it's going to ultimately do is it's going to start up that innovation process here in the United States again of people looking to manufacture goods and services here and produce them at a much quicker, maybe albeit a little bit more expensive rate, but eventually that'll come down as innovation starts to occur.